Hello everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving back into a story you thought you knew. But what happens after happily ever after? Let's find out. You remember the story: a beautiful princess, a jealous queen, a poisoned apple, and 7 loyal dwarfs. Snow White, after being awakened by true love's kiss, returned to her kingdom, leaving the evil queen to her fate. But evil doesn't always stay gone. Sometimes it just waits. Years passed, and the kingdom flourished under Snow White's gentle rule. The sun shone brighter, the harvests were plentiful, and laughter echoed through the village streets. Snow White, now a wise and beloved queen in her own right, often found herself walking through the castle gardens, the memory of her dark past feeling like a distant dream. But even amidst the fragrant roses and cheerful birdsong, a strange silence had begun to creep into the edges of the kingdom, an unspoken feeling that the peace was fragile, a calm before a storm. Deep within the forgotten chambers of the evil queen's abandoned castle, something stirred. The magic mirror, once the source of so much vanity and pain, began to tremble. A fine crack splintered across its polished surface, then another and another, until the glass shattered with a deafening, echoing boom that no one heard. But the magic, dark and twisted, did not die. It seeped out, a formless entity seeking a new vessel. Back in their cozy cottage deep in the woods, the 7 dwarfs noticed the change. The forest felt different. An unusual chill hung in the air, and the birds had quieted their songs. One morning, Doc, their leader, discovered a set of strange old footprints near their home. Footprints he hadn't seen since the days the evil queen disguised herself as an old peddler. A wave of unease washed over them. Something was wrong. They knew they had to warn Snow White. Standing on her balcony overlooking the kingdom she had fought so hard to protect, Snow White clutched the small crystal pendant around her neck, a gift from her prince. A cold shiver ran down her spine, a feeling of being watched that she couldn't shake. The horizon looked darker than usual, as if a storm was gathering not in the sky but within the very soul of the land. She didn't know what was coming, but her instincts screamed that danger was near. While on their way to the castle, Grumpy, who was grumbling more than usual, tripped over something hidden in the moss. It was a shard of glass, glowing with a faint, malevolent purple light. As Dopey reached for it, a jolt of cold energy shot up his arm. It was a piece of the magic mirror. The dwarf stared at it in horror, realizing with dawning dread that the queen's evil had not been vanquished. It had only been broken. As dusk fell, a shadowy figure moved through the misty woods. It was a phantom. A wisp of dark energy coalesced from the shattered mirror, wearing a cloak of pure shadow. It had no face, only a burning desire for revenge. The forest, once a place of refuge for Snow White, now twisted into a labyrinth of fear as the spirit's malevolence poisoned the air and warped the ancient trees. The queen was back, not in body, but in spirit. The next day, a perfectly ripe red apple appeared on the dwarf's doorstep. It looked eerily familiar. Sleepy, still half asleep, reached for it, his mouth watering. But just as his fingers brushed its glossy skin, Bashful knocked it from his hand. The apple hit the ground and dissolved into a puddle of black ooze, its foul magic sizzling on the earth. The spirit was testing them, playing the same cruel game all over again. There was no more time to waste. Snow White gathered the dwarfs in their cottage, the familiar scent of wood smoke and pine filling the air. This time, however, the mood was not cheerful, but grim. Maps were spread across the table, plans were drawn up. They were no longer naive or unprepared. They had faced this evil before, and they would face it again, together. Snow White's voice was steady and strong. She was no longer a frightened girl, but a determined queen ready for battle. News of the returning darkness spread quickly. A lone figure, cloaked and hooded, arrived at the castle gates. It was the huntsman. Riddled with guilt for his past actions, he had lived a solitary life, always watching over the kingdom from afar. Now, he knelt before Snow White, not as a servant to a queen, but as a warrior to his commander, pledging his sword and his life to protect her and end the evil he once served. The kingdom prepared for a siege not of soldiers, but of shadows. Villagers, who had once fled in terror, now stood firm. They lit torches, sharpened tools into makeshift weapons, and stood guard at the gates and along the forest's edge. The fear was still there, but it was overshadowed by their love for their queen and their resolve to protect their home. Rhythmic drum beats echoed through the night, a heartbeat of defiance against the encroaching darkness. The evil spirit grew impatient. It set a trap near the old mines. As the dwarfs patrolled the woods, magical vines, black and thorny, shot out from the ground, ensnaring Sneezy. But Snow White was with them. Channeling a light and courage she didn't know she possessed, she used a shard of pure quartz to sever the dark vines, the light of the stone burning the magic away. The forest itself seemed to be fighting back alongside them. The source of the power had to be destroyed. Guided by the huntsman, Snow White tracked the spirit to the ruins of the queen's castle, to the chamber where the broken mirror lay. The dark spirit materialized before them, a swirling vortex of rage and shadow, its form shifting into the mocking face of the evil queen. This was the final confrontation, not with swords or armies, but with will and light against darkness and hate. As the spirit lunged, Snow White held up the glowing mirror shard she had taken from the dwarves. Instead of fighting the darkness with more darkness, she poured all her love for her kingdom, her friends, and her life into the shard. A brilliant, pure white light erupted from it, engulfing the shadowy figure. The spirit shrieked as the light sealed its essence back within the fractured glass, silencing the malevolent magic for good. As the last echoes of the struggle faded, a profound calm settled over the ruins. The trapped light in the mirror shard pulsed once, then went dark, its magic finally at peace. Snow White and her friends watched as the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, chasing away the last of the shadows. A new day had begun, cleaner and brighter than any before. Peace returned to the kingdom once more. The sun rose over a castle that was not just a home, but a fortress of hope. The birds returned to the sky, their songs a joyful melody celebrating the victory of light. But as Snow White stood on her balcony, looking out at the peaceful dawn, she knew this was a respite, not an end. The world was vast, and full of both light and shadow. And she knew, with a certainty that settled deep in her heart, that this wasn't over. Other stories and other battles were waiting just beyond the horizon. Thank you so much for joining us on this new adventure. What do you think will happen next? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next chapter in our story. Until next time, stay magical.